Shalom, friends, wonderful to be with you. You know, we all need heroes and we all need role models. Why? Because they inspire us. They defy our ordinary life and they motivate us to find really the potential that we have in us. And today in the studio, we have a wonderful lady who has this caliber, and it's Kay Wilson. Kay?
Hi, Natalie. Thank you. That's a very generous introduction.
Yes, you are. And I can see now we know each other now for a few years, and I can see how good is coming out of you and all around you, and it's just amazing.
Well, thank you. It doesn't work unless I've had coffee, though. You know what I mean? Let's just keep everything in proportion.
So, Kay, you are British born.
Yeah.
You were an Israeli tour guide, and you are a musician, you are a cartoonist, you went to speak on TED Talk, you speak in APAC not a long time ago, you even had a speech in the UN. Mm-hmm. So your story is coming out. We spoke already together on the studio, but now you've done a book, The Rage Less Traveled, which is an amazing book. I read it. It's really your story. And you told me it's like 7 years. Okay, let's
7 years.
You speak.
Yeah, it's not like an autobiography. It's what's called a memoir, which is a portion out of my life, and it begins with that terrible day 8 years ago in the forest when I took a Christian friend for a hike, and then of course the murderous event that took place, and then the rest of the book is about how the police dealt with the inquiry, how they dealt with me. Terrible post-traumatic stress disorder, and very slow steps towards a long life recovery. And then, of course, there's a piece in the book where I had to go to court. It's all true. It's not like a story. Mm-hmm. And I had to face my would-be murderers.
It's a memoir, so it's the reality. Every page is written.
So it's very intense.
Yes.
But I have to say, it's also, because Israel is such a bizarre place, some of it is just very, very funny. And there's nothing funny about what happened to me, but it's this mixture. People don't know whether to laugh or cry or both. So it has hope as much as hell.
Yes. When I was reading it, and at the last page, I would say, oh, yes, she's coming out of all this horrible, terrible, stressful, traumatic. You can want to kill yourself.
Yeah, well, I certainly did.
Yeah, because of the trauma. Mm-hmm. But you turn that in an amazing way. Now, why is I love in one way the title, which is tough, but he really represents the book, what happened in your life, The Rage Less Traveled. Can you explain a bit?
This might take the whole show, but I'll try and be brief. So there's a very famous book called The Road Less Traveled, okay, in the English world. And I always liked how that sounded and what it meant. So first of all, it was like the rhythm of the music behind the sentence. And then I thought, I'll call it The Rage Less Traveled, because rage, and I mean rage, is something, it's almost the worst thing you can be, is to be raging in this weird snowflake society. I remember, let me tell you why it is. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing once on Sky News, they were covering the Bataclan. Remember that massacre at the Bataclan? And it was live, and behind you see all this terrible carnage. And the TV reporter she's speaking, and this guy comes up behind, and he's so beside himself. And he just says, ISIS. And then the woman in the studio, the anchor, it goes straight back to her, and she starts apologizing for the bad language. Like the worst thing you can do when you see bits and pieces of humans, the worst thing you can do is to say the word F and not be enraged with the carnage that these people have, caused. Now, I hope I didn't offend any Christian viewers, but let's get a reality check. So I also understand that in order for me to get where I am today, which is semi-sane, I wasn't much before that anyway, have my sense of humour back, become articulate, I could
Very articulate.
Well, thank you.
Yes, very articulate.
But I couldn't short-circuit the path to recovery.
Yeah.
And part of that path to recovery is owning my right to rage.
Yeah.
And that means directing it only at the people who are responsible, namely the murderers and the Palestinian Authority and the British government who funds these murderers, but not to hold my rage at people who've done absolutely nothing to me.
It's directed.
And it's limited.
Yeah.
And I have to own it. Look, it's the same with anyone who's had a loss. If people who are bereaved, they feel angry, and it's the right thing to feel. Now, that doesn't mean to say now that every day I'm waking up and thinking, I don't think about these people. So it's a conscious choice to own and stay in that place, not emotionally, just intellectually, that enables and empowers me to do what I need to do.
Exactly. But I think people who have a sense of justice, we have to have this rage inside,
Of course.
to go further and to change the world, which is exactly what you are doing. I think the Christian world really need to change, because the sugar-coated Christianity is not right. And
well, I don't know that Jesus was like that anyway.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean, he wasn't like that.
No, but I think this is, and again, is more. I was listening to your speech when you were in APAC, and I really love, because there you really speak saying, you know what, I'm an Israeli, and I've learned things because of people who are around me, and they help me because they know what they are going through, and so they have seen other people like me, and they know the way of recovery. So can you tell us, I mean...
Yes. Well, first of all, you know, when something terrible happens, whoever it is, whatever tragedy, we tend to feel we're the only people who've ever been through such a thing. And our suffering has this terrible side effect of isolating us. Like, nobody can understand me, and that's true for actually anybody. I can never understand you. But what I did understand, that when I look at my history, when I look at Israel's history, we've got a whole nation here, built from people who came on illegal ships, still in their striped pajamas from a concentration camp, people who'd lost their families, who'd experienced the most terrible things. And upon these ashes of the people who were murdered, we built the most vibrant, democratic, interesting, crazy, unbalanced little state there is. And so I draw strength from that.
Full of life.
Full of life. So, and I began to, since the attack, I met other people who'd survived, who'd buried their children, which I never buried anybody. And I realized suffering is not a competition. I knew that anyway, but it's not, it's not like mine is worse or better. It's simply different. But then I realized wherever you look, there are people in this country, either they've come from the Holocaust, they're survivors of parents or children of survivors, or they've had sons and daughters who've been killed in the army in action, or they've had relatives murdered, but they get up and they carry on. And to me that is, it's just the best revenge to terror that I find is to live life well.
And you are doing it. Now, we speak a bit, last time when we've done a program with you, we're speaking about the UK. Not a lot of things have changed for the UK itself, but we had this Taylor Force Act in America, which changed a lot of things. It was an American who was in a terror act in Israel, and it's Trump who signed the paper in March 2018, if I remember. This has been changing a lot of things that are happening now here, because again, we need people, you need to know that here, the Jewish people love life. Okay, we say it like big, like Jewish people love life, and the PA love death. And there is this phenomena, which is pay for slay. So could you speak a bit about that?
Yes, the idea of the pay to slay, it's the Palestinian Authority gets billions of foreign aid.
And that you need to know that.
Yeah.
Billions.
Billions. I mean, like 3 years ago, it was like $69 billion. And a percentage of that, to be precise, 7% of that foreign money from Western governments, they then pay, this is shocking, but they then pay to people who've murdered Jews, or in the case of Christine, a Christian. And so they get a reward system. And I find that obscene. And
it is.
It really is obscene. And through Palestinian Media Watch, Itamar Marcus, and of course you mentioned Taylor Force, Stuart Force, his father, America has put a stop to this. Holland decided to take their percentage, the 7%, which is what the Palestinian Authority pays to these murderers. They've stopped their funding by 7%. There's progress with Denmark, working on Sweden. The European Union too, who I've been very critical of in the past, they have decided to channel their funding to projects rather than just give out free candy and reward these murderers. At the moment, I tell you, Natalie, my would-be murderers have been given over $70,000 each. Now, concerning the Brits, of which your viewers can probably tell I have a British accent for my sins, it's like talking to a wall. I mean, there are people now who are standing up. Joan Ryan, a wonderful lady who I also met at AIPAC, who took us hacking in the press because she stood up for Israel. She's not Jewish herself. She was the victim of violent, filthy attacks, verbal attacks. And she's
in the UK?
In the UK, because she stood up for the Jewish people. And she's now really working very hard to put a stop to this. But on the other hand, other members of Parliament, like Alistair Burt, am I allowed to name and shame? Yes. Stephen Twigg. I mean, they just lie through their teeth. You know, like, it doesn't go here, it doesn't go there. And then every time there's a bomb or an Israeli citizen is murdered, they'll tweet something like, oh, we condemn this outrage. And I think, you know what? We don't need your crocodile tears. We need action. Mm-hmm. But to see a member of Parliament...
And we need money not be given to the terrorists.
But they lie without thinking twice. And I find that absolutely morally objectionable. And I'll tell you something else with the Brits, okay?
Yes. Carry on.
No, I'm sorry. I have so much to say. I can't believe it's only 29 minutes. Let's extend this program. We don't need adverts, right? But I tell you something else. I am very much loved amongst Arab people, Muslims, Palestinians. I've opened my home out to hide young Arab youth from death threats from Muslims who wanted to murder them. And I get on my social media daily requests, we want to meet you. I mean, lovely, lovely young Arab people. And it even led to the case where I've started a little project in a refugee camp with a Palestinian, and we're trying to do this re-education. It's a counter-radicalization program. So you cannot get me for spewing hatred towards people, all right? Now, despite that, I have tried to get on every single outlet of British media, the television, the radio, okay, just to alert the British public that the Brits, my family, through their taxes, are paying my would-be murderers. Guess how many have had me on their media? 0. In fact, the last time was a couple of weeks ago, where through an organisation, One Family, who helps survivors of terrorism, they called me and they said, Kay, the BBC are looking to speak to a survivor of terrorism and address this issue of the funding of, or giving the salaries to Palestinians incarcerated in Israeli prisons. Would you like to do it? And I thought, how fantastic.
I know, amazing.
Amazing. Yes, of course I want to do it. So they call, the BBC man here calls, and then he says in the end, he says, you know what, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. So he gets back to me after somebody's nudging him, and he says, no, we've decided you're too well known. Now, what do they want? I tell you, I mean, we're not stupid, right? What do they think we are? They want a brown bully who can only, speak in like this. He cannot speak. So he looks like a brute. He looks Israeli. He looks estranged. There is nothing to identify the common audience with. And I told the BBC, I said, I think that's morally obscene. Yeah. And shame on them, really. Shame on them.
Because if you're articulate as you are, and you are British citizen...
And I'm not spewing hatred. I am not.
Exactly.
Really.
No. Yeah.
I'm telling you, people, who's going to be watching this are these Arab friends of mine, these Muslims, these Palestinians, and they'll all be going, well said,
This is very interesting. Now, I want just to pick up one thing. We are just going to watch a clip of your film Black Forest, and after we are going to speak about it. Look at that.
في معك شنطة؟
لا بقى معي شنطة.
أيوة. شو فيهم كمان تحت الحجر؟ أنا شايفهم في أشياء تانية كمان. ارجع لورا ارجع. בעצם זה הכי קשה, זה השחזור. כשאת רואה את זה, אומרת, מה הולך כאן? אין רגשות, אין.
עכשיו 3:50 אחרי הצהריים, אנחנו הגענו פה בהובלתו של העצור, אנחנו ממשיכים את החיפוש לאחר המוצגים. לאחר חיפושים בהובלתו של החשוד, הגענו למוצגים.
ليش جيتوا على المنطقة هاي؟
جينا نقتل
تقتل مين؟
يهود.
ليه؟
بس جينا نقتل.
شو السبب؟
ما في سبب.
ما في سبب.
So you can see in this film the reaction. There is no feeling. They don't feel anything. But you can find, you can read this book, The Rage Less Travel. I think it's a tough book, but it really show first of all Israel. It show the reality of what's happening here. It show the reality of how the Israeli people are, how the Palestinians are, and it will give you really an inside story, and there is hope in the book. And Kay, how was it for you to be at the
trial?
At the trial.
Let me just back up with that, because the film clip you just showed your viewers, it's not actors. This is original police footage of the person who murdered Christine Lucan. Okay, and you're absolutely right. There's no expression. And I remember when they were stabbing us, one thing, a million things go through your mind, but they weren't even angry. It was like they hacked without fury. It was just another working day. So when I came to the trial, and I've never been to court. Mm-hmm. So the only experience I have from court is what I see in the movies, like these big high ceilings and wood panels, and you get to court and it's Israel. It's like a bomb shelter. It's not much bigger than this studio. And I find myself in this situation where I'm 15 feet, 5 meters away from the people who tried to murder me. And I've got Christine's parents here. I've got the parents of the other lady who was murdered by the same terrorists. And I sat there and I wasn't scared because I knew they were chained up. And I didn't want to look at them. I felt like throwing up. Their evil was tangible. But I knew not to look at them is to concede defeat. Mm-hmm. Now, take you back to the forest for 1 second to juxtapose. In the forest, although they weren't angry, and people cannot help what they look like, all right? I'm saying this to make a point. They weren't nice-looking people. They're a bit deformed, and then you get the evil with it. It's a horrible, horrible concoction. So when I'm back in court, I'm expecting this same, hair on the back of my neck reaction. And I thought, okay, you've got to look at them. You've got to look at them. And I lift my head up slowly. And you know what I saw? I saw just 2 ordinary guys. Not particularly handsome, but just like... And I for the first few seconds, I was self-doubting. It can't be them. It's not them. It looks like them, but it's not them. And then when I knew it was them? When one of them yawned and rolled his eyes like he was bored. They were bored by murder. And then they started like sniggering and laughing and nudging each other when Christine's father got up to give his victim impact statement. And I mean, really, I could not hate them enough. And I knew if I had a knife there, I would have gouged out their eyeballs. The rage was visceral. I had to sit on my hands not to do it. And it was so exhausting emotionally. And it's taken months, albeit years, to just let that dissipate and then channel. I'm not saying you go and smash people around, but rage it's a virtue. It's actually a virtue when you direct it against evil. I mean, if people, your audience are people of faith, right? But belief in God. God rages at the wicked.
Yes, he does.
So rage in its right form, directed at the right people, is a moral necessity.
It is.
It's a moral necessity. And if we don't do that, if we don't make a clear definition between loving good and hating evil, we're going to end up loving evil and hating good.
Exactly. Very good. I find something that I read a few times with my Jewish friends, and he who is compassionate to the cruel will ultimately become cruel to the compassionate.
That's right.
And this is so important. And this is how we have to do what we have to be. And when you speak about the UK government, they are cruel to they are becoming cruel to the compassionate.
Yeah.
And this is not right. And what you're doing is right now. Please, friends, you can find this book, The Rage Less Travel, on your website.
TheRageLessTravel.com. Yeah, see across the bottom of your screen now? That's the one.
Exactly. And it's a great book. Take time to read it. It will change you. It will make you see what's happening here in Israel and the truth of what's happening here. Now, I want also to speak about the new thing that you are doing. But so you are doing something very practical with children.
Yes, I mean it's not really like official. I just happen to know a lot of people, and we set up a non-profit in America, because what we've got. I'll call my friend Ali, who lives in a refugee camp. He's culturally Muslim, not religious Muslim, just culturally Muslim, and he is an extraordinary educated young man, beautiful English, and we got to know each other, and he told me that as soon as he understood he could read English, he started reading about Israel and Jewish people, and he understood it's not like the lies he was being told, and also at the United Nations schools in the refugee camp. And
UNRWA.
Yeah,
UNRWA.
really, I mean, which is also a very big immoral institution. Yes. So by him knowing English, he taught himself, and he realized that the world wasn't what they were trying to make it to be. And so we got together, and in the camp, I've been there, I've sneaked in, and it's a despicable place, and that's not because of Israel, by the way. That happens to be because of the United Nations and their own victimhood mentality. And I was talking to Ali about this. They're just perpetual victims. They always have to blame somebody. And I don't think that's empowering. No. Nobody came to me and said, oh, you know what, Kay, your life is going to amount to nothing. Oh, we're so sorry. I mean, they were sorry, but they helped me. They held my hand and said, okay, you can't go guiding. Let's see what else you can do. And so we are finding a way to empower these children, not just to take responsibility for their environment and for their education, but we're empowering them to say no to adults who will groom them and send them to their deaths.
And you are doing that now. This is very interesting because you are doing that with art, with music, with football. Yeah. So it's like interactive. But what you see when I see this film again, for me, it was like they have no feelings. And it's like, I don't know, because I don't know the environment, but it seems that they are making this culture they are like pushing the feelings away. There is no art, there is no music.
Exactly.
You see all these things, and like it's the soul of the person who is important. So in all the work that you are doing, you are starting to show to the people, hey, you know what? You're a human being. You're not just like somebody, like a victim.
Well, that's why we called it the Yellow Brick Road, because it comes from the movie The Wizard of Oz. And if people are not familiar, it's about a girl's adventure. She finds herself in this foreign land, and she meets companions, and one person, or a scarecrow, didn't have a brain to think, another didn't have a heart, and the other he was a lion, but he had no courage. So her journey with her companions, they found that within themselves they could learn from each other. Because if they learn to cherish their lives, and they are only children, and if they learn to cherish their lives and stop buying into this perpetual victimhood, they can make something of their lives, and further, they won't be taking knives to slaughter Jews.
And like wherever you are,
Yeah.
you can make life beautiful.
And if you take responsibility, I am going to help you.
So please, friends, look at this book, The Rage Less Travel. It's just, it's a tough book. I'm not going to say that it's not, but it's really showing you what's happening to Kay. And I'm sure that it was tough to write. It was with tears and blood.
It was, definitely.
Yeah. But did it help you also to come out?
Well, to be honest, like I said, it starts in the forest, and there's a whole chapter about the gory attack. So that particular chapter was something I'd written in trauma therapy, like a month. It took me 2 years in therapy or something to write down those few pages. And because I was still so freshly traumatized, I'd given that few pieces of paper to some people 6 years ago, and they'd come back and they say, I was there in the forest with you. I didn't even know how it was going to end. And so when you read that particular section, and actually the next few chapters about post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm not writing in hindsight. I've taken my notes of what...
Yes, I know. We are with you. That's
It's
it.
totally
we are
visceral.
with you. We are
It's
with
totally
you. But I
visceral.
tell you, it's very well written, by the way.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
I've got some very generous endorsements and reviews.
Very, very well written. That's it, Kay. The time is running out already. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
I know. Wonderful to have you again. And we can see that you are carry on doing amazing things. Friends, I hope that you really enjoyed that. You can go onto our website, which is theragelesstravel.com, and you can ask for the book and read this amazing story. And from me and from Kay, bye, and see you next week.